such a great recognition. I want to give them and their families time to leave and other folks to come in. I want to note that all our principals were here and supporting their students. We have a couple of them still in the room, and they're going to spend the night with us, I think, so it's good. Dr. Hardy and Mr. Ames. So thank you for being here. It's a great recognition. That brings us to our approval of the minutes of the August 5th, 2019 board meeting. And do I have a motion that we approve? Mr. Case.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the minutes as posted for the August 5th, 2019 board meeting.
We have a second. Ms. Hammond seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously, and Ms. Hutchinson abstained. So that brings us to our superintendent's report. And I was going to ask the audience, we're in a smaller space than normal. We've met here a good many times this summer. If you have a conversation that you need to have with your neighbor, sounds like this I'm in school, don't I? But if you do have it and you need, if you would, please step out of the room and then come back. We had some of that last meeting, and it's very distracting to the people around you and up here. So we thank you for that courtesy. So that brings us now to our superintendent's report. Dr. Milton, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Board members and community, you've alluded to it already, Mr. Gannon stated it. We welcomed back our staff last Tuesday, and we welcome back students this Wednesday. And it's taken the effort of many to make sure we're prepared. So I'd like to thank our maintenance and facility staffs one more time because all the deliberate, intentional care they've given our buildings. Mr. Richardson has been watching things very closely because with the heat the way that it is and without portions of the building being operational, things are starting to show that they're not quite ready. So Mr. Richardson and his team have been standing ready and are committed to make sure that we're ready for a successful start on Wednesday. So I thank him and all of them very much. Everyone's been involved to make sure we're ready for the coming year, but there's some things I'd like to make sure that I'll pause this evening to celebrate. If you haven't heard, the Niche.com ratings came out recently. School District 5 ranks nationally in the top 4% in 3 categories, so we congratulate everyone for their contributions. Here in South Carolina, School District 5 ranks as the #1 best school district. I doubt any of us are surprised by that, but I think it's worth noting for the record for everyone to hear in our community. And also, School District 5 ranks as the #1 district with the best teachers in America. Who could argue with that? Dr. Jakes is applauding already, waiting for the opportunity to celebrate. And speaking of those teachers, last Monday we had a historic event here in School District 5 known as First in 5. Our foundation and a committee of very committed teacher leaders helped us create a welcome to our first-year teachers. It was almost like a shower. They came in and were presenting gifts from their principals, followed by gifts from the foundation of wish lists that they had submitted, and then it ended with the collection of items that they need for their classrooms. There was no charge to them. That happened because of the generous donation of so many people either retiring or changing jobs, or maybe they just accumulated too many things over the course of their career. So we couldn't say thank you to every person that contributed, but I can tell you, I watched teachers, first-year teachers, leave Chapin Middle School with hand trucks of items. I watched first-year teachers celebrate the fact that they had been given things that, oh, I wanted that. I didn't know I'd get it this year. So when you have that kind of celebration, we are making sure that we're combating retention by taking care of those that are choosing to come to School District 5. I say thank you to Tamara Turner, who's here this evening, our Director of Personnel. She spearheaded that committee on my behalf, and what an amazing job she and that committee did. And we'll be highlighting that committee thanks to Ms. Goggins in the next few weeks. And if you haven't seen it, made the news on 2 local stations. So look us up because it's a story worth telling. And I do believe that other districts hopefully will take the idea to welcome their newcomers. You alluded earlier, Mr. Gant, to our event today, and Mr. Bemo is still back there. This man is definitely a rock star, a superhero. He is just the best of all. And I charged him with an idea to create a way to have a welcome back bash for our students. Our goal was try to get 100 kids to come out to Saluda Shoals today. We had a vendor that prepared 500 pizzas and only had 40 left at the end of the day, and we know that not everyone ate. So our estimation is over 500 kids and families were there this morning between 9 and 11:30, having face painting by our high school students, playing cornhole, playing a variety of games, collecting school supplies from our foundation, having screening for their vision. Imagine that. Kids that need to have their vision screen had that done today. Having a coupon to get a free haircut, those were distributed today to those families that may need a little bit of assistance to make sure our students look their best when they come back to school. So what an opportunity. And then there was an invitation to take a wellness walk because it was held at Saluda Shoals. So here I've given to the board members these sophisticated bracelets that we take great pride in, a pride in 5. So Mr. Bingbo has provided one for all the board members to have one of these rubber bands. Rubber band bands is what I'll call them. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but we too often don't tell our story, but I hope that people hear this story because we made sure we welcome families back and we're building relationships with them. So many people have been working hard to make sure that we create history and that we create success together. And in that partnership, we want to highlight a couple of reports this evening. I'm going to toss it first to Dr. Jakes because our Office of Human Resources has created a presentation this evening about our 4.0 rubric. Dr. Jakes.
Thank you.
Dr. Jakes, if you would allow me just a moment, you know, Dr. Melton won't let you get a word in sometime. Dr. Melton, we want to celebrate those rankings and all the celebrations you just told us. I'd like for everyone to join me in a round of applause for School District 5. Dr. Jakes, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Tamara Turner, Director of Personnel, to come forward, and she will have the pleasure of briefing you on the 4.0 rubric, which allows us to evaluate all of our teachers in School District 5.
Good evening. One of the functions of the Office of Human Resources is to support the evaluation of all of our certified teachers in every classroom. The South Carolina Teaching Standards 4.0 rubric is the newest tool that's been adopted by the Department of Education and implemented this year. I have for you a snapshot of where we've been with rubric implementation. Beginning in 2016-17, we began to pilot and train our evaluators on the use of the new rubric. In 2017-18, we continued the training and preparation of our educators and administrators for the implementation of the tool. And last year was the first year that we fully implemented this new system of teacher evaluation. I have a brief overview of the areas in which teachers are now evaluated through a combination of evidence such as classroom observations, lesson plans, teacher evaluator conferences, teacher reflections. Teachers are assessed in the 4 domains presented for you. Each domain consists of a series of key indicators about which evaluators collect evidence to analyze the performance of each teacher. To this point, the overall feedback with rubric implementation has been positive. Some of the benefits that we've noticed is the support for continuous improvement of instruction. This applies to educators across all performance levels. Clear, timely, and useful feedback. This is something educators have asked for. They've long wanted to be a part of conversations whenever we're engaging in evaluation that impacts their certification and results. This process provides that. Also, the things that we now look for in classrooms are aligned with the profile of the South Carolina graduate. So there's a direct relationship between what teachers practice and what students learn, and it's directly aligned with our profile for the South Carolina graduate. As we continue in our journey to improve our practice as educators for the benefit of the students we serve, our goal is to continue to use evaluation to shine a light on where teachers can grow in their craft. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. There may be a few questions, Ms. Turner, so if you'll just
Sure.
pause and let Mr. Gant.
Good question. Ms. Hammond, green light. Just hold it down a little bit.
Can you?
I can.
Did it all? I have a teacher voice, so I can yell. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that this, God, I love you. I just told some of my cohorts up here, it was the first day in Lexington the teachers came back, so I talked all day and I needed something hot. Dot, she should get a raise. I really am interested in this because all teachers are, and this is so neat to see the 4 areas, but I have a couple of questions. you talked about clear timing and feedback. How often are our teachers observed? Is it always by the principal and the assistant principal, or they shake it up? I just want to find out the process in District 5. And then when you collect evidence of each of these, how is it done? You know, because I'll tell you, as a teacher, you know, it's kind of a snapshot. Can't be in there long because just of the time of observing teachers. So I just want to see how we calculate it and how often they are observed, because this is a real key to teachers. And I'll just tell you, so often it's been changed and changed and changed. And teachers, you know, are all in there working to do a good job, but they worry because they're teachers. They want to make an A. They want to make 100. And they worry if when you happen to be in there, Dr. Milton knows what I'm saying, they weren't on that particular standard, or they were not, you know, you might not have seen one of these that day. So I'm throwing a lot at you, but I'm gonna let you just give me how often, and then how we actually collect that data and evaluate it, I guess I'm saying.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
understand. The number of evaluations is outlined in the state guidelines, so it's going to depend on contract level. For example, an induction teacher would not be evaluated as frequently as an annual 1 teacher. And then you have your 5th year renewal, which every educator every 5 years is evaluated. And then there's a different guideline for teachers coming to us with reciprocity. So it's going to differ based on that evaluation level. You also asked about the evaluators in terms of exactly who completes the evaluations. Right now, our administrators, we're the first group of educators to be trained on this. This is a process that they have to attend a 3A training and complete a certification exam. So we started with administrators in the building, and we've now expanded the opportunity to include teachers as a leadership opportunity. The advantage to that is it also increases their understanding of the rubric by being trained. So it certainly enhances their ability to receive the rubric. You mentioned something in the last piece, particularly about, I think some what was the last part of your question?
Well, I wrote them down. Was it the one about how you actually collect the evidence?
Yes.
You use that word, so the
That
teacher.
training, it helps relieve some of the anxiety
Yes.
around the rubric. The beauty of this new instrument is it's not perceived as punitively as safety the former model was. This rubric includes opportunities before a teacher is evaluated. The administrator sits down and has a pre-conference. You get a preview of what's going to be evaluated, and that can be also followed with some coaching. So before evaluators even show up, there's some conversation. Then they show up for the observations. And you did mention something important. What happens if you have a teacher who's not performing a certain item on the rubric on that day?
Exactly.
The beauty of this instrument is that teacher reflections, written lesson plans, and post-conferences also come into play. So before a teacher gets a final score, each of those pieces of evidence is put into the big picture, which is a little different than previous evaluation pieces.
Is this brand new this year?
It rolled out in 2016-17. The first year of full implementation was last year, 18-19.
Well, in the name 4.0, I know very few teachers that really get the 4.0. They'd like to have a 4.0 because the teachers got it. But I think, and I'm just talking as a teacher, what teachers say. They're happy when it's the 3 or the 3.5, but even some of those teachers, they'll look on there and then something that was supposed to be observed, let's say you're just not using the technology when they come in, but you use it all the time, then they can't rate you high on that. So I just want to be sure that our teachers understand how it's implemented, you know, how they're judged, how they're graded, because they feel like it's a grade. I'm just saying. And then, I hate to say this, probably not in District 5, but you can get a lot of teachers that tell you they're seldom, that haven't, if they've taught a long time, they're not observed very often. And you know, that's something between the principal and teachers. I just want to be, it's fair, and I'm excited about it. I think all of these are great. Every teacher would want to be doing these 4 things. But I just want to be sure they know what they are. They know if they're not on that day, you have a way to still give them credit because it's in their lesson plans. Does that make sense?
And I think one of the pieces that really helped us in the district is we were allowed to embed professional development specifically for administrators. You're absolutely correct. How do we protect teachers as we go into this process? So we were intentional about creating professional development where we were coaching both the administrators who would serve as evaluators. Very receptive. I think the 2017-18 year when we were doing that training, the main concern for our administrators was how do we present this to teachers so they feel like this is done with them and not to them. So we've been very intentional about embedding that message, and we've received positive feedback. They feel more valued as professionals because of the engagement and the idea that this is a growth process. We all have areas to refine and reinforce. So this is also led by a reinforcement. We always highlight the positives, but we're also intentional about saying everyone can still grow.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Mr.
You know I get excited about classroom instruction, Mr.
Yes,
Gant,
it's my
so
favorite.
may I?
Yes.
Ms. Turner has done a fantastic job of highlighting the process, and I can't say enough how much human resources and instruction have calibrated on this process. And I see principals in the back of the room that have been instrumental with leading this process to make sure that we're assuming proficiency of our teachers, but also making sure there's relevance to it. We expect a growth mindset. Hopefully all the staff heard me say that Friday at our rally that we held of welcome back to our staff. We expect a growth mindset, so we don't want to mislead anyone and think that a 4.0 is that level of perfection, but we do know that our teachers expect perfection most times of themselves. But I heard a question that you posed about observations. During the PADEPT process, which is a principal evaluation process, you've heard Ms. Turner explain this is a State Department of Education template and process. Just like this, there's one for principals called PADEPT. We have acronyms for everything. So PADEPT being the acronym for principal evaluation, Mr. Giuliano is Chief Instructional Officer, and the appropriate director of either secondary or elementary, they look to the observations that our principals have done and the entire administrative team. So throughout the year when they meet, if we see that a team is behind the average, we encourage them to get in the classroom to make sure that the teachers are getting that feedback before it becomes evaluation feedback, and where the teachers feel more pressure of wondering, how am I doing? So they're getting that feedback throughout the year to make sure they're prepared. And I would also like to celebrate and thank Human Resources and Instruction, because with our template that we use, which was actually developed by 2 District 5 graduates of Dutch Fork High School, we have taken it to make sure the template of this feedback is aligned with this 4.0 rubric, so that it isn't just something that happens for summative reasons, it happens for formative development. So I very much appreciate the work of Human Resources and Instruction with that effort together. So hopefully, Mr. Gant, that helps bring a little bit of broader context to it of how it goes beyond one example of teacher leadership in the classroom of one specific lesson, but more about the practice of how we have the culture in School District 5.
All right. That's very good. Mr. Lovelace?
I had not know anything about this, but just a facile question, but when you have observers in something like drama or the arts or something like that, are those observers all people that have taught that before, or how does that work exactly?
The requirements to be an evaluator is because it's rubric based. We assign people who are trained and certified on the use of the rubric. The advantage of the rubric is it's flexible enough and it's written towards student actions. So even when the observer isn't a content expert, when you go into it, you're looking for certain student actions that are relevant in any particular content area. So it's a way that the teacher engages, and there may have to be conversations after the observation where the theater teacher explains, this is how I satisfied this component of my observation to someone who's not an expert, but those built-in conferences help support that. So to answer your question, trained evaluators are assigned. When content experts are available and trained, certainly try to assign them. But if not, then the conversation with the trained evaluator is what happens.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Turner.
You're welcome.
Next up this evening, we have another report, Mr. Gann and board members. For the 18-19 school year, I introduced 5 priorities of which the board approved to work towards my goals and my evaluation for the coming month. The 5th priority was about the safety of emotional safety, physical safety, and social safety of our students and also our staff. So the next report that we presented this evening is a collaborative report between the Office of Planning and Administration and the Office of Instruction. I'll ask Mr. Giuliano to get us started first this evening. Mr. G.
Thank you, Dr. Melton. Board members, I'd like to, as Dr. Melton mentioned, this is a collaborative effort amongst many different departments to bring these couple of new programs to you. So I'm going to ask Dr. Angie Slatton, our Director of Special Services, to come up and present one of our new programs, and then she'll turn it over to Dr. Harris to talk about another new offering that we have in School District 5. Dr. Slatton.
Thank you. Dr. Melton, Chairman Gant, thank you for the board members for having me today. I'm really excited to share this program with you, the Bridge program. And I want to start by reviewing what PBIS is very quickly. So as you know, that's an instructional initiative. And when you think about how we're providing supports for social emotional needs of all of our students, you think about the green tier being 80 to 90% of our students. So instruction being taught on social emotional needs works for 80 to 90% of those students. And then we have that tier 2, which is secondary targeted support. These students may need small group settings. They may need specific instruction for their needs. And then you think about that tier 3 group, which is your tertiary or your very intensive behavioral or social emotional needs. And that's what we're going to be targeting today in our conversation. So we know that those tier 3 students, that little red triangle up on the top, we know that they need individualized small group supports. We know they need that both for academic and social emotional needs. We know that they need a flexible learning space. We know that they need supportive academic and social emotional needs that goes beyond the traditional student in our schools. We know that they need high positive reinforcements, they need incredibly structured environments, and they need a predictable environment. And finally, we know, our research shows us, we talked about BOOM and Project Search last week, we know that we need those community partners in order to be successful with a program like that, like this as well. So that is a key piece to the Bridge program. So we know where we are. So now we want to talk about where we want to go. The Bridge program is an evening program for high school students that are not successful in the traditional setting, and they haven't been successful at the Academy for Success as well. They need more than those programs can offer. We know that we want a referral process for entry and exit. This is not a place just to place kids. They purposely are placed there. We teach them the skills that they need, and we send them back to their home schools. It should be a short-term placement for these students. This is not somewhere that they go and stay. And then finally, we think right now the proposal is that these will be a 4-day-a-week program for 3 hours at a time, and it'll be in the evening. And not only will we have the academic supports, but we'll have the behavioral supports and the mental health and the vocational supports as well. So again, making sure that we have those academic, behavioral, and vocational supports. The ratio of staff to students, as we suspect, it'll be somewhere around 1 teacher, 1 assistant, or additional staff member to about 6 students. Definitely will encourage, we can't mandate that any student apply for vocational rehabilitation services or Department of Mental Health services, but it is something we will definitely encourage our families to do. And we will also encourage individual and family counseling through this program, all of which will be available either on-site or in partnership with those community resources. Okay? The agencies that we know that we would be partnering with are Department of Mental Health, vocational rehabilitation, and we've got other advocacy groups that we work with that we would love to bring in and support this program as well. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you so much. So we wanted to simply say, you've heard Dr. Slatton mention, and we certainly appreciate her doing so, that this program will certainly encourage the support and the participation of families with mental health and vocational rehabilitation, which is inclusive of individual and family counseling, as well as building upon the partnerships that we currently have with our local and state agencies, namely mental health services. You have, as a board, have been very supportive over the years and continue to be so regarding our programs that we have in regard to mental health here in School District 5. We seek and are looking forward to continue to build upon what we currently have. What this slide, this singular slide does is simply give you a visual as to what our services look like mental health wise across the district. You've heard us make mention of the fact that Lexington County, kind of heavy on the Lexington County side heretofore. And those numbers that simply give you an idea of the number of case managers that we currently have serving the number of schools that we have where there are the greater needs. And then of course on the right-hand side is that of Richland County, which gives you an idea of what's happening on there. Heretofore we've had one case manager in our Richland County schools, Dutch Fork High School and Dutch Fork Middle School collaboratively. We have since moved forward with making certain that there is an additional person available at River Springs as well as Oak Point Elementary School. They are starting this year, the year 1920. And we also make mention of the fact, parenthetically, you see there at the bottom that there is a telepsychiatry. And that is a service that we are immensely looking forward to implementing here in School District 5. School District 5 will be the second school district in the state of South Carolina to have this service available to us. When we heard about this some time ago, we asked the question, how can we be a part of that? And interestingly enough, it's no additional cost to us outside of what we currently do in terms of our contracted services with the Lexington County and Richland County mental health services, mental health organizations. So we look forward to that. It is an opportunity for our families to, quite frankly, to eliminate the need to have to travel downtown Columbia and or across the bridge over to Lexington County in terms of getting the services that they need. It eliminates the need for, or the delay time, if you will, between students who are medicated and having to be medicated. It reduces and eliminates the need to have a delay between that. It does a number of different things, and it's all there at our schools. Again, we're looking at River Springs and Oak Point as a pilot for the coming year. We've already met with our principals, and we had a team meeting with our State Department of Mental Health representatives, as well as the assigned case manager, and we are all very super excited about moving forward with this program. It's virtually, basically, I see you looking at your computers there. You just kind of take that as a visual, and that's kind of how the services are going to be provided there at the school, directly with a psychiatrist on the other side of that teleprompt. So it's a great service that we're looking forward to. Again, eliminating the need for travel time, eliminating the need for delay between medications, eliminating the need for even with missed appointments. We learned, and this was an interesting point for me, that if a family, for whatever reason, missed an appointment, it's as much as 90 days before the next appointment can be scheduled. We're going to close that gap. We're going to eliminate that by making this available telepsychiatry here at River Springs and Oak Point Elementary Schools. And thereafter, we look to build upon that. We want to build upon what's happening in our Richland County schools. This is simply shared with you to let you know that we move forward with this effort and this initiative, and programs like the Bridge program, and quite frankly, any other program that would come forward hereafter will bode well with partnering and collaborating with our mental health services and our partnerships that we currently have. Thank you.
Mr. Gates.
Dr. Harris and Dr. Slatton, thank you for bringing this to us. I think being able to leave a student where they have support in the building, people they're familiar with, and now they're able to get additional support from a healthcare professional. They're not going to lose seat time. They're not going to have the transportation issues. I just think it's a win-win. Ultimately, it's more support for the educators in the building as well that may need extra services to support those students. So I appreciate you bringing that, and I look forward to hearing the success of that program and as it grows and we can roll that out in the district. I did have a question about the Bridge program. Is that, so if I understood what you presented, a student may come from any of our high schools, including the Alternative Academy, and be identified as a candidate to be supported through the Bridge program short term, and then they would return back to their school of record. It's not a intermediate step to not go to alternative or away. I mean, it's for all our students.
Absolutely, and it's one more resource to provide for our students who are struggling. And so we would be looking primarily at those entry criteria of students that we know that would benefit from those we would call wraparound services, the vocational supports and the mental health supports. So that would be a big part of who would be identified as needing this program specifically.
Thank you.
Have questions? Mr. Lovelace?
Dr. Harris, just in general, I mean, for those of us that don't understand the process, could you identify how we would identify somebody that, or one of our students that needs these services? I mean, in general, I mean, I know that every case is specific, but how do we do that?
I think there's several different ways, and I'm just going to give you some things that I've seen that we have been able to connect students with. You know, obviously, one of the things you look at are behavior concerns that are really out of the way, erratic behaviors that are not common to the student. Perhaps there is something that has occurred at home or in the neighborhood that the student has witnessed or been a part of or been exposed to that obviously is brought to our school and into the classrooms that impacts them or devastates them, quite frankly. And then it again obviously begins to impact or impair their ability to perform well in the classroom. That's an example of a student who could be referred. It could be, again, this is individual and family, so we want to look at the entire unit. The student is only as strong as the family unit, so we want to make certain that we are caring for the families as well. From grieving experiences, things of that nature. There are various number of different examples that I could share with you that will give you an example of what we mean and who would be referred to for mental health services.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hammond?
This is a little bit on that same idea, but as a teacher, would you know how we already have students identified with IEPs and BIPs, which is individual, instructional plan or behavioral plan? Would those kids be potential, like not, would it be our principals maybe and the teachers, by talking to the principals, some of those where we see those not working, could we actually, or a teacher, could they actually recommend somebody and then they have a, they could go through that with your process to choose who could do this?
For the mental health program or
Yes,
for the bridge?
yeah, well, I'm thinking about, so often, and I know it doesn't mean it is, but so often a child with a BIP and they've had it for years and then they've gotten to middle school and still had it. A lot of times it is a mental health issue. You can't say that as a teacher, but I'm just wondering if that could be one resource, that we know they already have that. That's in place and by law of what we've got to do to help that child be successful. And I was just thinking that could that be one avenue? It doesn't mean it for sure, but that could be one avenue. Parents already know their child has that. They'd have to come in and sign with the teacher, and and you have meetings on it. So I thought, I got excited about thinking that could be kids that just what we're doing isn't really working either, even though it's better than nothing. And then that was my other thing, to ask how we advertise this or communicate this, so that parents could really find out about it. And I just didn't know how we were going to advertise it or communicate it to the public in hopes that they would come and be just very excited about a nighttime program that was going to help the whole family.
Let me take the first stab at this in the first part of your question. And I think one of the strengths of what we have in School District 5 are the relationships that we have among the professionals here in our schools, our psychologists, our school social workers, our guidance persons, obviously our mental health, who are all talking one to another. Let's also include our teachers who are talking about the needs of students, what they're seeing, what they're observing, that again is different from the norm for most students, particularly maybe for a particular student. You have triage meetings, and you have, again, student assistance teams meetings in addition to your BIP and your IEP meetings that we have. So I share that to say we're simply talking, and I think that's the start of making certain that students are getting what they need, is that the professionals who are caring for those students and who see the differences in those students are talking one to another and looking at what else can we do to support and better support the student. And again, also the family. I think the second part of in terms of advertisement, and I see Dr. Milton kind of nodded about that, so she may want to piggyback on this. We certainly want to work with our communications department, communications office, to make certain that word is getting out, that this is available in School District 5 at these particular schools, and that it is our hope, it is our dream, perhaps it is our mission to continue to build upon what we currently have in terms of expanding mental health resources and services here in School District 5. I'll pause there and maybe we want to add to that.
Thank you.
And I will say, if you think back to that red triangle in our
Mhm.
PBIS
Yeah.
needs, that's 1 to 5% of our population of students. And so it's not uncommon for those students to already have a behavioral intervention plan.
Right.
And possibly an IEP as well. So we're constantly in meetings with parents and offering these community supports along with what we're doing, especially for our high school students, because our goal is for them to walk across that stage with the supports that they need. So it's really, really important that they know about what those resources are while they're with us. So we can, again, wrap those services around our students to ideally get them work and college ready when they leave us.
I'm excited about it because so much is mental health issues and people don't want to talk about them and these kids need help and teachers need help with these type of kids.
Mr. Cates?
I think anything we can do, and Dr. Harris, Dr. Slatton, again, as a thank you to shatter the myth of the stigma of seeking support for, I don't even say it's health. I don't know why we call it mental health, it's health. In 2006, when my oldest college-age son was diagnosed with leukemia and his brothers were 5 and 8 in our schools, it were the teachers that wrapped their arms around him, his brothers, and supported and encouraged them. We had the means to be able to seek additional resources and did outside of the school, but that was a place of support and encouragement for their health, because if they're not healthy, they're not able to learn. And so I just, again, applaud when Lee ultimately was not able to, he lost his life to that illness. 6 years later, it were those same educators that stood next to his brothers, and today they are healthy, successful young men because of the support and encouragement. And I just am moved by that experience to say thank you. And as our students are getting ready to come back to school, I think we forget sometimes that's a lot of them, that's where they're loved, nurtured, and encouraged. So anything we can support, any way we can support those that support them, we want to be about that. So we look forward to the success of both of these programs.
Thank you.
Dr. Harrison, I'm sorry, did you want to end? Go ahead, you're good.
I just had a question. I noticed that it's a nighttime program, but these are for students who will no longer be attending regular class time. Is there a reason why it's at night, or is it better services or family centered, or?
Did you plant that question, Dr.
I was
Melton?
waiting for it. I was gonna speak to it later, so you go ahead.
These are students that, I agree, in the ideal situation, it would be a day program. What we'll be doing in this situation, as we're getting this program off the ground, is utilizing staff who are in the classroom during the day. Ultimate goal, long-term, would be to establish, show it works, and grow. The goal, one of the pieces that's so important with that vocational rehabilitation part is that ideally we would love to have them out working in the community with the support of job coaches during the day. Our goal, and Dr. Malt's been very clear about this from the beginning, that we don't want the students at home sitting during the day. So what we really want to do is partner with vocational rehabilitation to try to get them into work-based experiences during the day. That's the goal. Great question.
And I was just going to ask Dr. Harris and Dr. Slatton, when you started, you mentioned, we were talking about Tier 3 only tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Some of this seemed to bridge across that, but at some point, and maybe even tonight if you'd like to, but obviously 80 to 90% you said were in Tier 1 of our student population. And then, so we're talking about 5 to 10% at any time in the top tier, but at some point, we'd love to have a follow-up to talk about these other 2 tiers and the normal PBIS and all and so forth that's going on. But,
So we would love to share what we're doing. We
well,
have
we'd
some
love
really
to have
good
the other
things
part
going
of this
on.
puzzle too, that'd be great.
Yes, sir.
But I know it's, and I personally got to attend several of the great programs this year toward the end of the year, and it's just a great service that's provided. And I'm sure it's very consuming of the staff and the resources that we have to do that. But we're serving human beings and our students, and it's a good thing to do. Thank you.
Mr. Gann, if I could summarize this, because this has been hopefully an interesting report for all of you, but hopefully it offers you a glimpse of how innovative we're trying to be and how committed we are. And Dr. Slatton has been working on this project for more than a year now, and it's gotten to the point now we're ready to make it public. So Ms. Hammond, to answer your question about communication, we wanted the board to hear it first. So it starts here for you all to be aware. For the community to know, we've not asked for any additional full-time teaching positions for this. You heard Dr. Slatton respond to Ms. Gardner's question. We're using teachers that are teaching during the day that are interested and committed to make sure they're helping kids in the evening, but we want to make sure we have the chance to perfect this and get kids in the working environment so that they can be productive citizens. If you look at the slide that Dr. Harris has here for us to see, our vision is to get to 1 mental health case manager per 2 schools. We have a long way to go, but we are increasing that. So on behalf of the staff, we'd like to say thank you to the board for that increase of an additional $100,000 for this fiscal year, because we're able to do things just like this to make sure we're responding to the needs of our kids. But the bridge program that Dr. Slatton spoke to, understand we developed a process, but once you've gone through a process, you may change it just a little to make it tweak. So we're trying to hold our commitment and our vision will be the same, but the details may slightly change once we get into the process of this. Short-term placement, I want to echo that. This is not a place we want a student to go into for an entire school year commitment. And I hope you heard she said blended instruction. So it's not going to be the traditional classroom setting. It's going to be blended with some different variants of what traditional looks like. So we're excited about this, and I think we're going to hear positive things through our services and our partnerships that we have dealt with, but those partnerships have happened because of people like Dr. Slatton and Dr. Harris. And because of the two of their leadership, we're able to do something innovative that's really going to support the development of our students and their health, their wellness overall. So if y'all would join me, I'd like to thank the two of them for their continued leadership. And finally, Mr. Gann, if I may, Friday we had a rally in School District 5 welcoming back our staff. For that to have been possible, we had to have lots of sponsorship and talent on stage. We have some talented students that came up on stage. We had some talented elementary music teachers that came on stage. We have a talented Teacher of the Year, Sarah Gams and Kim Carroll from Chapin Middle School, who had such eloquent speeches that we're going to have a rock star year. If you haven't seen on social media, check it out, because hopefully you will be proud of the work of our staff, and it was an exciting kickoff that we have. Hopefully video evidence is not about to appear behind me, and I see that.
Where's Dr. Melton up there?
When that happened, I thought, there may be a surprise for me. But what, yes, sir, I did.
We could get the board moving, Dr. Melton. Come on.
What a great kickoff it was. So thanks to the board for being in attendance. Ms. Goggins and her staff, thank you for your coordination to make sure the details came to success. It was a tremendous day for District 5. Mr. Gant, that completes my report.
Thank you very much.